I was 38 years old when I learned that 20 years of backbreaking work means nothing if you're born with the wrong parts between your legs. My name is Brinley, and I've spent half my life keeping the Shepherd family ranch alive. While my brother Caden was off playing college boy and then city businessman, I was here at 5 a.m. checking cattle, mending fences, and studying soil composition reports by lamplight. When the drought hit 3 years running, I was the one who figured out the rotational grazing system that saved our herd. When the bank threatened foreclosure, I was the one who negotiated the payment plan that kept us afloat. But none of that mattered the day we buried my father. I'm sorry, Brinley. Don't be. Is everything still in place? She nodded and opened the folder. The land trust is ironclad. The moment they violate any of the operational standards your grandfather specified, ownership transfers to you automatically. I scanned the documents I'd helped write as a 23-year-old. Grandpa Archie had been thorough. No overgrazing, no subdivision without environmental impact studies, no sale of parcels without unanimous family consent, proper maintenance of all structures and equipment. The list went on for pages. How long do you think it'll take? Cynthia asked. At the rate they're going? Not long. And you're sure about this? Once it's triggered, there's no going back. I thought about Gavin's smirk, about Mom's cold dismissal, about Caden's assumption that he deserved everything I'd worked for. I'm sure. That evening, Krista found me in the barn checking on a sick calf. How's she doing? She asked, scratching the calf's ears. Better. Fever's down. Gavin wants to sell her. I looked up. What? He says sick animals are a liability, bad for efficiency. She's going to be fine. It's just a minor infection. I know that, you know that, but he's got Caden convinced we need to streamline the operation. I stood up, wiping my hands on my jeans. What else? They're talking about selling the South 40. Gavin says it's not productive enough. The South 40. Where Grandpa Archie was buried, where 4 generations of shepherds had grazed their first cattle, where I learned to ride, to rope, to read the weather in the clouds. They can't, I said. Dad would never. Dad's dead, Krista said gently, and Mom's desperate for cash. The funeral expenses, the medical bills from Dad's last year. She's drowning. So she's going to sell our heritage to pay for it. Looks like it. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked out to the porch and sat in Dad's old chair, looking out over the land that had been in our family for over a century, the land that Caden was already planning to carve up and sell off piece by piece. My phone buzzed. A text from Krista. Gavin's drunk. He's bragging about some big land deal. Says he's found a buyer for 3 parcels. 3 parcels. That would trigger the trust immediately. Any sale without unanimous consent was a violation. I texted back, which parcels? South, 40, the creek bottom and the hill pasture. Says the buyer wants to build some kind of resort. A resort on our ranch. On the land where my great-great-grandfather had built the first cabin, where my grandfather had taught me to love the soil and the seasons and the endless cycle of life and death that made ranching more than just a business. I put my phone away and smiled for the first time in weeks. They had no idea what they were about to lose. I started carrying a camera everywhere. Not obviously just my phone like anyone else, but I documented everything. Every shortcut Caden took, every safety protocol Gavin ignored, every maintenance issue they brushed off as not cost-effective. The first week of their management, they skipped the quarterly hoof trimming. Waste of money, Gavin declared. Cattle have been walking around for thousands of years without pedicures. I took photos of the limping cows. The second week, they decided the water tank maintenance could wait. It's still holding water, Caden said when I pointed out the rust eating through the bottom. We'll fix it when it actually breaks. I documented the contaminated water, the sick cattle, the vet bills that followed. By the third week, I had a folder on my phone labeled Evidence with over 200 photos and videos. Brinley, come here, Caden called from the equipment shed. I found him standing next to our best tractor with Khalil, our longtime contractor. Khalil looked furious. What's the problem? I asked. Khalil here thinks we need to replace the hydraulic lines, Caden said. I think he's trying to pad his bill. Khalil shook his head. Those lines are cracked. One of them blows while someone's operating this thing. They could get killed. They look fine to me, Gavin said, walking up behind us. A little wear and tear never hurt anyone. A little wear and tear? Khalil's voice rose. Man, I've been working on farm equipment for 20 years. This is dangerous. Then don't use it, Gavin shrugged. We'll find someone who will. Khalil looked at me. Brinley, you know I'm right. I did know. I'd been telling them about those lines for 2 weeks, but I wasn't in charge anymore. It's not my call, I said quietly. Khalil stared at me for a long moment, then started packing up his tools. I'm done. I won't be responsible for someone getting hurt because you people are too cheap to maintain your equipment. Fine, Gavin said. We'll find someone else. After Khalil left, I took pictures of the cracked hydraulic lines. Then I added his contact information to my phone. He'd make a good witness if needed. That afternoon, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. You need to stop undermining Caden. I haven't said a word. You don't have to. Your attitude says everything. She slammed a coffee mug down on the counter. This family has traditions, Brinley. The ranch goes to the son. That's how it's always been. Even if the son doesn't know what he's doing, he'll learn, and Gavin is helping him. I laughed, couldn't help it. Gavin? Mom, he tried to feed alfalfa to cattle yesterday. Alfalfa. Do you know what that could have done to them? I don't care about the details. I care about this family's reputation. What reputation? We're going to be the laughingstock of the county in 6 months. Her face went red. You're jealous. You always have been. Just because you're the oldest doesn't mean you deserve. I deserve what I earned, I snapped. 20 years, Mom. 20 years of my life. And now it's time for you to step aside and let the men handle things. The men. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked outside and found Krista by the horse corral. She was brushing down our old mare, Stella. They're going to sell her, Krista said without looking up. What? Stella. Gavin says keeping horses is a waste of resources. This isn't a petting zoo, he said. Stella was 32 years old. Dad had bought her as a filly, and she'd been part of our family longer than Caden had been alive. She was gentle as a lamb, perfect for teaching kids to ride. Where would she go? Wherever they can get the best price, I guess. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Tell me again what Gavin said. Krista looked confused but repeated it. I saved the video and sent it to myself via email just to be safe. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Krista. Emergency family meeting. Mom's office. Now. I found them all there. Mom behind Dad's old desk, Caden and Gavin in chairs like they were running a board meeting. Sit down, Mom said. I remained standing. What's this about? We've made a decision, Caden said, trying to sound authoritative. We're subdividing the South 40, the creek bottom, and the hill pasture. Gavin found a buyer. A resort developer, Gavin added proudly. They're offering way above market value. It's a no-brainer. You can't sell those parcels, I said. Actually, we can, Mom said. The will gives Caden full authority over ranch operations. What about family consent? Caden is the head of this family now, Mom replied. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences, but I remember every word of what happened after. We'd barely gotten the last mourner out the door when Mom called us into the living room. Caden had driven down from Denver that morning, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in his expensive suit and polished shoes. "Sit down, both of you," Mom said, her voice carrying that tone she used when she meant business. She was holding a manila folder, and my stomach dropped. "Your father's will was very clear about his wishes," she continued, not meeting my eyes. "The ranch goes to Caden, as is proper, as is tradition." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" Caden straightened up, suddenly interested. "Mom, are you sure? His consent is all that matters." I looked at Krista. She was staring at her hands, saying nothing. "The paperwork's already drawn up," Gavin said. "We close next Friday." Next Friday. 7 days. "Any objections?" Caden asked, like he was doing me a favor by asking. "None at all," I said. "Congratulations." They looked surprised by my calm response. They expected me to fight, to argue, to make a scene. Instead, I walked out of the office and straight to my truck. I had a phone call to make. Cynthia answered on the second ring. "Brinley, it's late. They're selling 3 parcels next Friday." A pause. "Without unanimous family consent?" "Mom says Caden's consent is all that matters." "Well," Cynthia said, and I could hear the smile in her voice, "I guess we'll see about that." I couldn't sleep that night, so I drove out to the old cemetery where Grandpa Archie was buried. The headstone was simple granite, just his name and dates, but I could still hear his voice like he was sitting right next to me. "You remember what I told you, little bird?" he'd said that day in Cynthia's office 15 years ago. I was 23, fresh out of college with my agronomy degree, and he was already sick with the cancer that would take him 2 years later. "Tell me again, Grandpa." "Family's supposed to protect each other, but sometimes family's the one you need protecting from." He'd been right. Even then, he'd seen what Mom was planning, how she'd always favored Caden despite his complete lack of interest in the ranch. "Your daddy's a good man," Grandpa had continued, "but he's weak when it comes to your mother. He'll promise you the world, but when push comes to shove, he'll do what she tells him." "So what do?" "We make sure the land stays with someone who loves it, someone who'll fight for it." That's when we'd drawn up the trust. Every detail, every safeguard, every trigger that would transfer ownership if the ranch was mismanaged or sold off piecemeal. Grandpa had been thorough, and I'd been young enough to think we'd never need it. Now, sitting by his grave in the dark, I whispered, "I hope you knew what you were doing, old man." The next morning I found Mom in the kitchen making coffee. She looked tired, older than her 61 years. "We need to talk," I said. "If this is about the land sale, it's about Dad." She froze, coffee pot halfway to her cup. "What about him?" "He promised me this place. You know he did." "Your father promised a lot of things he couldn't deliver." "Because you wouldn't let him." She set the pot down hard. "Your father was a dreamer, Brinley. Someone had to be practical." "Practical? Is that what you call giving the ranch to someone who doesn't want it?" "Caden will grow into it." "Will he?" "Because right now he's about to sell off a third of our land to build a resort." Mom's face went pale. "That's not, he wouldn't—" "Ask him yourself." She did. That afternoon, I heard them arguing in Dad's old office. Mom's voice was shrill, panicked. Caden's was defensive, whiny. "It's just business, Mom. We need the money. This land has been in our family for over a century, and now it's going to help secure our future. Gavin says, I don't care what Gavin says, he's not family. He's helping us modernize. You said you wanted the ranch to be profitable." "Not like this." Their voices carried through the thin walls. I was in the living room pretending to read, but really listening to everything. "The contracts are already signed," Caden said. "It's too late to back out now." "Then unsign them." "I can't. There's a penalty clause." We'd lose everything. Mom went quiet for a long moment. Then, how much money do we owe? Between the medical bills, the funeral costs, and the ranch debts, about 200,000. Jesus Christ. The land sale will cover all of it, plus give us operating capital for next year. And what happens when that money runs out? We'll figure something out. That evening, Krista found me in the barn. Did you hear them fighting? Hard not to. Mom's freaking out. She's been calling relatives all afternoon trying to borrow money to stop the sale. Any luck? Uncle Pete hung up on her. Aunt Sarah says she's got her own problems. I wasn't surprised. Mom had burned a lot of bridges over the years with her pride and her sharp tongue. There's something else, Krista said. Gavin's been making other calls. I think he's lining up more buyers. For what? Everything. The equipment, the cattle, maybe even the house. My blood went cold. He can't sell the house. He can if Caden agrees to it. That night we had what Mom called a family dinner. It was more like a funeral. Mom picked at her food. Caden looked guilty, and Gavin kept checking his phone. So, Mom said finally, I've been thinking about the land sale. It's happening, Caden said quickly. The contracts are signed. I know, but maybe we should think about what comes next. Gavin looked up from his phone. Actually, I've been working on that. I've got some ideas about monetizing the remaining assets. English, please, Krista said. We sell everything, the cattle, the equipment, the house. Use the money to buy into a real estate development company I know in Denver. The silence that followed was deafening. You want to sell the house? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. It's just sitting here depreciating. In Denver, that money could be working for us. This is our home. It's an asset, Gavin said, and assets should generate income. I looked at Caden. Is this what you want? He wouldn't meet my eyes. I don't know. Maybe. I never planned to live here forever. Where would Mom go? She could get a nice condo in town, something easier to maintain. Mom stood up abruptly and left the room. A few minutes later, I heard her bedroom door slam. That went well, Krista muttered. She'll come around, Gavin said. Change is hard, but sometimes it's necessary. I excused myself and went to my room. I had emails to send, documents to review, and a phone call to make to Cynthia. The land sale was happening Friday, but by Monday everything would change. They just didn't know it yet. Friday morning, I sat in my truck outside the title company, watching Caden and Gavin walk in with their briefcases and confident smiles. They had no idea I was there, no idea what was about to happen. My phone buzzed. A text from Cynthia. Documents filed. Trust invocation is official as of 9 a.m. Congratulations. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Inside that building, my brother was signing away his birthright. Outside, I was taking it back. The irony wasn't lost on me. An hour later, they came out laughing. Gavin was on his phone, probably calling his developer friends. Caden looked relieved, like he'd just solved all his problems. I followed them home, staying far enough back that they wouldn't notice. When I pulled into the driveway, I could hear them celebrating in the kitchen. 3.2 million, Gavin was saying. Not bad for morning's work. I can't believe it was that easy, Caden replied. Why didn't Dad ever think of this? Your dad was old school, Mom said. She sounded tired but pleased. He thought land was something you held on to, not something you sold. Well, his way was keeping us broke, Gavin said. This way, we're set for life. I walked in through the back door. Brinley's been the decision is made, Mom cut him off. A ranch needs a man to run it. That's how it's always been in this family. I found my voice. Dad promised me, he said, your father said a lot of things. Mom's eyes were cold as winter, but when it came time to put pen to paper, he did what was right, what was necessary. My hands were shaking. 20 years. 20 years of 16-hour days, of missing dates and friendships and any chance at a normal life because this place needed me, because I thought it was mine. I don't even want it, Caden said, and I wanted to hit him. I've got my consulting business, my life in the city. You'll learn, Mom said firmly. It's your birthright. That's when Caden's friend Gavin walked in like he owned the place. They were all sitting around the kitchen table with champagne glasses and a bottle of cheap sparkling wine. Brinley, Caden called out. Come celebrate with us. We just made enough money to save the ranch. By selling the ranch, I said. By selling part of it, he corrected. The part that wasn't making us any money anyway. Gavin poured me a glass. You should be thanking us. This secures everyone's future. I took the glass but didn't drink. Whose future exactly? All of ours, Mom said. The family's. What family? You kicked me out of the decision-making, remember? You're still part of this family, Caden said. You'll always have a place here. As what? A hired hand? As my sister. The word hung in the air between us. Sister. Like that meant something after what they'd done. Krista walked in from the living room looking uncomfortable. What's all the noise about? We sold the parcels, Mom announced. $3.2 million. Krista's face went white. You actually did it. Best decision we ever made, Gavin said, raising his glass. 2 new beginnings. They all toasted except for Krista and me. We just stood there, watching them celebrate the destruction of everything our family had built. So what's next? Krista asked quietly. Well, Gavin said, pulling out his phone, I've got some calls to make. The cattle market's hot right now, and I think we can get premium prices if we move fast. You're selling the cattle too? Not all of them, just the ones that aren't cost-effective to keep. Which ones are those? Gavin scrolled through his phone. The older cows, the ones with health issues, anything that's not producing at optimal levels. Those are our breeding stock, I said, the foundation of the herd. They're overhead, Gavin corrected, dead weight. They're the genetic base we've been building for 30 years. And now they're going to be someone else's problem. I set down my untouched champagne. I need some air. Outside, I called Cynthia. How long before they get the notice? Should be any minute now. I sent it certified mail to your mother, and I'm having a process server deliver copies to Caden and Gavin. And there's no way they can fight it? Not a chance. The trust is ironclad, and they violated multiple terms. The land sale without unanimous family consent was the final trigger. What about the money from the sale? Goes into escrow until the ownership transfer is complete, then it comes to you. I hung up and walked back toward the house. Through the kitchen window, I could see them still celebrating, still planning their bright future with money that would never be theirs. My phone rang. Krista. Where are you? She whispered. Outside. Why? There's a man at the door. He says he has legal documents for Caden and Gavin. I'll be right there. I walked in through the front door just as the process server was handing over the papers. Caden was reading them, his face getting paler by the second. What is it? Mom asked. I don't understand, Caden said. This says the ranch ownership is being transferred to Brinley. What? Gavin grabbed the papers. That's impossible. You own the ranch. Apparently not, Caden said, sinking into a chair. Mom snatched the documents. This is some kind of mistake, some legal technicality. It's not a mistake, I said from the doorway. They all turned to look at me. The celebration was over. What did you do? Mom's voice was deadly quiet. I didn't do anything. You did it to yourselves. What are you talking about? I smiled. Maybe you should read the fine print. The kitchen erupted like a bomb had gone off. You scheming little bitch! Mom screamed, throwing the papers at me. What have you done? I protected our family's legacy, I said calmly, picking up the scattered documents. Something you should have done. Caden was frantically reading through the legal papers. This says there was a trust, a land trust established 15 years ago. That's impossible, Gavin said, grabbing the papers from him. We would have known about a trust. Would you? I asked. Did you bother reading Dad's will completely? Did you check the property records? Did you do any due diligence at all? You can't do this, Mom said, her voice shaking with rage. This is fraud. This is legal, I interrupted. Completely legal. Grandpa Archie and I set up an irrevocable trust 15 years ago. The ranch would transfer to me automatically if certain conditions were violated. What conditions? Caden asked. I pulled out my phone and started reading from my notes. No subdivision or sale of parcels without unanimous family consent. No overgrazing beyond sustainable levels. Proper maintenance of all structures and equipment. No disposal of breeding stock without environmental impact assessment. We didn't know about any of that, Gavin protested. Ignorance isn't a defense. You violated every single condition multiple times over the past month. This is insane, Mom said. You're destroying this family over a piece of paper. I'm saving this family. You were going to sell everything and move to Denver. That was just an idea. It was a plan. Gavin's been lining up buyers for the cattle, the equipment, even this house. Krista spoke up from the corner where she'd been quietly watching. Is that true, Caden? Caden looked at Gavin, then back at her. We were exploring options. You were liquidating our heritage, I said. Turning a century of family history into a real estate investment? At least we were thinking about the future, Gavin snapped. You're stuck in the past. The past is what built this place. The past is what you were about to destroy. Mom was pacing now, her face red with fury. There has to be a way to fight this. Lawyers, appeals. There's nothing to fight, I said. The trust is ironclad. Cynthia made sure of that. Cynthia. Mom stopped pacing. Cynthia was in on this? She's been my lawyer for 15 years. She helped Grandpa and me set everything up. You've been planning this since you were 23? Caden's voice was barely a whisper. I've been protecting this ranch since I was 23. There's a difference. You let us think we owned it. You let us make plans, sign contracts. You did own it until you proved you couldn't be trusted with it. Gavin was frantically typing on his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. This can't be legal. Go ahead, I said. Call whoever you want. The documents are filed, the trust is activated, and the ownership transfer is complete. What about the money from the land sale? Mom demanded. Goes into escrow until the transfer is finalized. Then it comes to me. That's our money. It's the ranch's money, and I'm the ranch now. Caden stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. You planned this. You watched us struggle, watched us make mistakes, and you did nothing to help because you wanted us to fail. I tried to help. You ignored every piece of advice I gave you because you were undermining us. I was trying to save you from yourselves by stealing our inheritance, by taking back what was always mine. The words hung in the air like a slap. Everyone went quiet. Always yours? Mom's voice was dangerous. This ranch belonged to your father, then it belonged to Caden. It was never yours. I've worked this land for 20 years. Tall, soft-looking guy in designer jeans who'd never worked a day outside in his life. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Gavin said, not looking sorry at all. Just wanted to let you know I've been looking at the books, Caden. There's definitely some opportunities here for optimization. Optimization, like our ranch was some corporate merger. Gavin's going to help me modernize things, Caden explained. Bring some business sense to the operation. I stared at them both. You don't know the first thing about running a ranch? That's what consultants are for, Gavin said with a smirk. Sometimes an outside perspective is exactly what a struggling business needs. Struggling. I've bled for it, sacrificed for it, built it into something profitable and sustainable. If that doesn't make it mine, then what does? Being born male, Krista said quietly. We all turned to look at her. She was standing by the window, arms crossed, looking older than her 31 years. That's what this is really about, isn't it? She continued. Brindley could have been the perfect rancher, the perfect heir, but she was born with the wrong equipment. That's not, Mom started. It is exactly that, Krista cut her off. You gave everything to Caden because he's a man, even though he never wanted it and doesn't know how to do it. Tradition? Tradition is bullshit, Mom. And now it's cost us everything. Gavin was still on his phone, but I could tell from his expression that his lawyer wasn't giving him good news. There has to be something, he said desperately. Some loophole, some way to challenge this. There isn't, I said. Grandpa Archie was thorough. He knew exactly what he was doing. So did you, Caden said. You played us. You let us think we were in control while you pulled the strings. I gave you every chance to succeed. You chose to fail. We chose to trust you. No, you chose to ignore me. There's a difference. Mom suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You have to stop this. You're tearing this family apart. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. I'm not tearing anything apart, Mom. I'm just picking up the pieces of what you already broke. I pulled free and headed for the door. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. That's more than legally required, but I'm feeling generous. Brindley, wait, Krista called. I turned back. What? What about me? Where do I fit in all this? That's up to you. You can stay and help me run the ranch properly, or you can leave with them. And if I stay, then you'll be my partner, equal say in all decisions. Mom laughed bitterly. Partner, like she was ever going to be your father's partner. I'm not Dad, I said, and this isn't his ranch anymore. It's mine. 2 weeks later, I stood on the front porch watching Caden load his BMW with the last of his belongings. The expensive suits, the designer shoes, the business books that had never taught him how to read cattle or weather, or the subtle signs that meant the difference between profit and loss. You don't have to do this, he said, not looking at me as he slammed the trunk shut. It's already done. I mean, kick us out. We could work something out. I could stay on, learn the business properly this time. I almost laughed. Like you learned it the first time? I made mistakes. I admit that. But I'm still your brother. Are you? Because brothers don't usually try to sell their sister's life work out from under her. He finally looked at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen in his face before. Genuine regret. I didn't know how much this place meant to you. 20 years, Caden. 20 years of watching you live your life in the city while I held this place together. And you didn't know? I thought you were just helping out. Helping out? I shook my head. I was running this ranch while you were playing businessman in Denver. I was the one who saved us from bankruptcy, twice. I know that now. Now doesn't matter. You had your chance. Gavin came out of the house carrying a box of his things. He'd been quiet since his lawyer confirmed there was no way to challenge the trust. The fight had gone out of him completely. Car's loaded, he told Caden. We should go. Where will you go? I asked. Back to Denver, Caden said. Gavin's got some connections there. Maybe I can get back into consulting. What about Mom? She's staying with Aunt Sarah for now, says she can't bear to look at this place anymore. Mom had left 3 days ago without saying goodbye to me, just packed her bags and drove away in her old Buick, leaving behind 40 years of memories and a daughter she could no longer stand to face. She'll come around, Caden said, but he didn't sound convinced. No, she won't, and that's fine. I don't need her approval anymore. Gavin was already in the passenger seat staring at his phone. He'd been trying to salvage his reputation with his Denver contacts, but word had gotten out about the ranch debacle. His consulting career was probably over. I'm sorry, Caden said suddenly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry for what? For taking what wasn't yours? For trying to destroy everything I built? For treating me like hired help in my own home? For all of it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the little boy who used to follow me around the ranch, asking endless questions about the cattle and the land, before Mom convinced him that ranching was beneath him, before he decided that city life was more important than family legacy. You know what the worst part is? I said. You could have been good at this. If you'd actually tried, if you'd listened, if you'd cared about anything other than the money. I know. But you didn't. You took the easy way out, just like you always do. He nodded, not arguing. Can I ask you something? What? Did you ever love me? As a brother, I mean. Or was this always the plan? The question hit me harder than I expected. I loved the brother you used to be, before you became someone who could look me in the eye and tell me I didn't deserve what I'd worked for. And now? Now I don't know who you are anymore? He got in his car without another word. I watched them drive away, the BMW disappearing down the dirt road that led to the highway. 20 minutes later, Krista found me still standing on the porch. They're gone, she said. Yeah. How do you feel? I thought about it. Empty, relieved, angry, sad, all at the same time. That's normal, I think, after something like this. Is it? I don't know what normal is anymore. Krista sat down on the porch steps. I've been thinking about your offer, about staying on as your partner. And I want to do it, but I need to know something first. What's that? Are you going to become like Mom, all bitter and controlling, pushing people away when they don't do exactly what you want? The question stung because I'd been wondering the same thing. I don't know. I hope not. Because I won't work for someone like that, partner or not. I understand. Good. Because this place needs both of us if it's going to survive. She was right. The ranch was mine now, but it was too big for one person to handle alone. I needed help, needed someone I could trust. Equal partners? I asked. Equal partners. We shook hands on it, sitting there on the porch of the house that had been in our family for over a century. The house that was finally, truly mine. But as I looked out over the land I'd fought so hard to keep, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd won the war but lost something else in the process. Something I might never get back. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You'll regret what you've done. I showed it to Krista. She frowned. Mom? Probably. Or maybe Gavin. What are you going to do? I deleted the message and put my phone away. Nothing. Let them threaten. They have no power here anymore. But even as I said it, I wondered if I was wrong, if the real fight was just beginning. The fire started at 3 in the morning. I woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of Krista pounding on my bedroom door. Brinley! This place that I'd bled for, that I'd saved from bankruptcy twice, that I'd built into something sustainable and profitable, struggling. Mom slid the transfer papers across the coffee table. Sign here, Brinley. Make this official. My sister Krista appeared in the doorway, her face pale. She'd been listening from the kitchen, Our eyes met, and I saw the same shock and anger I was feeling. "This isn't right," Krista whispered. "This is how it has to be," Mom said without turning around. "Sign the papers, Brinley. You can stay on as a hand if you want. Caden will need the help." A hand on my own ranch, working for my little brother who couldn't tell a bull from a steer. I picked up the pen. "The barn's on fire." I threw on clothes and ran outside. Orange flames were licking up the side of the old hay barn, the one where we stored the winter feed. In the distance I could hear sirens. "Did you call 911?" I shouted over the roar of the fire. "First thing I did," Krista yelled back. "The fire department's on their way." We grabbed hoses and started spraying water, but it was too late. The barn was fully engulfed. All we could do was wet down the surrounding buildings and hope the fire didn't spread. The volunteer fire department arrived 20 minutes later, but by then the barn was a total loss. Chief Martinez found us sitting on the porch steps, covered in soot and ash. "Anyone hurt?" he asked. "No, we're fine," I said. "Just lost the barn and about 50 tons of hay." "Any idea how it started?" I looked at Krista. We were both thinking the same thing. Could have been anything. Electrical, spontaneous combustion, careless cigarette. "Or arson," Martinez said quietly. "We'll investigate, but I wanted you to know we found tire tracks by the back fence, fresh ones." "What kind of vehicle?" "Sedan, probably. Not a truck or SUV." "A sedan, like Mom's Buick, or Caden's BMW." "We'll dust for prints, check for accelerants," Martinez continued. "But between you and me, this looks deliberate." After the fire department left, Krista and I sat in the kitchen drinking coffee and staring at the insurance paperwork. The barn was covered, but barely. It would take months to rebuild, and we'd lost most of our winter feed. "This was them, wasn't it?" Krista said. "Probably." "So what do we do?" Before I could answer, headlights swept across the kitchen window. A car was coming up the driveway. At 4:30 in the morning, I grabbed the shotgun from the closet and went to the front door. Krista was right behind me with a baseball bat. The car stopped in front of the house. The engine shut off and a figure got out. In the porch light, I could see it was Mom. "Put the gun down, Brinley," she called out. "I'm not here to fight." "Then why are you here?" She walked slowly toward the porch, her hands visible. "I came to confess." "To what?" "To setting the fire," Krista gasped. I kept the shotgun pointed at the ground, but ready. "Why?" I asked. "Because I was angry. Because I wanted to hurt you the way you hurt me." "So you tried to burn down our ranch?" "I tried to burn down your barn. I didn't want to hurt anyone, just make you pay." "For what? For taking back what was mine?" Mom stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. In the harsh light she looked older, smaller, defeated. "For being right, for being better than Caden, for making me face the truth about what I'd done." "Which is?" "That I gave everything to my son because he was my son, not because he deserved it. That I ignored my daughter who actually earned it. That I destroyed this family because I was too proud to admit I was wrong." The words hung in the air between us. I'd waited 20 years to hear them. "I called the police on my way here," Mom continued. "Told them I set the fire. They're probably on their way." "Mom," Krista said softly, "you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. I have to face what I've done." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Mom sat down on the porch steps and put her head in her hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for all of it." I leaned the shotgun against the wall and sat down beside her. "I know. Can you forgive me?" I looked out at the smoldering ruins of the barn, at the land I'd fought so hard to keep, at the family I'd had to destroy to save it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday." The police cars pulled into the driveway. Mom stood up and walked toward them, her hands already raised. "Esther Shepherd," she said to the first officer, I'm here to turn myself in for arson." They arrested her quietly, professionally. No drama, no resistance. Just an old woman finally accepting the consequences of her choices. After they left, Krista and I sat in the pre-dawn darkness, watching the last wisps of smoke rise from the barn. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we rebuild. The barn, the business, maybe even the family, if there's anything left to rebuild." "And if there isn't?" I looked at her, my sister who'd chosen to stay when everyone else had left. "Then we build something new." The sun was coming up, painting the sky pink and gold over the land that was finally, truly mine. It wasn't the victory I'd imagined, but it was the one I'd earned. And for the first time in 20 years, that felt like enough. My hand was steady now, steady as it had been every morning for 20 years when I'd gotten up before dawn to check the cattle. Steady as it had been when I'd delivered calves in the middle of blizzards, when I'd negotiated with feed suppliers and veterinarians and bank loan officers. I signed my name on every line Mom pointed to. "There," I said, setting the pen down. "All yours, Caden. Congratulations." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Brindley, I hope we can—" "I'm sure you'll do just fine," I said, standing up. "You and Gavin have it all figured out." I walked out of that room, past Krista, who was crying quietly, past the family photos on the mantel showing 4 generations of shepherds who'd worked this land, past everything I thought was mine. But here's the thing nobody knew, the thing I'd kept secret for 15 years. Grandpa Archie and I had made our own plans, plans that went way deeper than any will Mom thought she understood. They had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks later, I watched Caden and Gavin tear apart everything I'd built. "We need to maximize efficiency," Gavin announced at breakfast, waving around a tablet like it was the Holy Grail. "These grazing rotations are way too conservative. We can double the cattle per acre." I looked up from my coffee. "That'll destroy the grassland in 2 seasons." "See, this is exactly the kind of outdated thinking that's been holding this place back," Gavin said. "Modern ranching is about optimization, not tradition." Caden nodded along like a bobblehead. "Gavin's got an MBA, Brindley. He knows what he's talking about." "An MBA in what? Cattle management? Soil science?" "Business," Gavin said smugly, "which is what this is, a business." I bit my tongue and went back to my eggs. Mom walked in, already dressed for town. "Brindley, I need you to help the men today," she said, not looking at me. "They're moving the herd to the north pasture." "The north pasture isn't ready," I said. "It needs another month of rest." "Gavin says it's fine," Mom replied, "and he's the manager now." Manager, not even owner, manager. Caden couldn't even be bothered to pretend he was running things himself. "Mom, that pasture—" "Enough!" Her voice cut like a blade. "You work for Caden now. Do what you're told or find somewhere else to live." The threat hung in the air like smoke. 20 years of my life, and now I was one complaint away from being homeless. "Understood," I said quietly. After they left, Krista slipped into the kitchen. "This is insane," she whispered. "They're going to ruin everything." "Probably. So what are you going to do?" I finished my coffee and stood up. "What I'm told, apparently." But that afternoon, while Caden and Gavin were moving cattle to the north pasture against my advice, I drove into town. I had an appointment. Cynthia's law office was in the same building where Grandpa Archie and I had met 15 years ago. She was waiting for me with a thick file folder. "I heard about the will," she said, closing the door behind me.